On this episode of Slainte, we head to beautiful Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, as we make our way to Ironworks Distillery. We'll talk to the two owners and learn about the storied history of their location, as well as how they've made the most out of an unfortunate act of Mother Nature. Today we're headed over to Ironworks Distillery in scenic Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. Ironworks was established in an old blacksmith shop that was built in the 1800s. This place sounds like it's rich on tradition and culture. I can't wait to check it out. From the moment you step foot into Ironworks Distillery, you are overtaken by the incredible visual history that remains. To get more information on this, I wanted to get the full walkthrough from Colette, the distillery's main tour guide.
So, welcome to Ironworks. It's also known as the Thomas Walters Marine Blacksmith Shop. It was built in 1893 and it ran until 2004. 3 generations ran the shop. It was Thomas, and then it was his son John, and then John's son Vernon. And actually Vernon lived right next door in this house here until a few years ago he passed away at the age of 90. I'm going to show you a picture here. So in this picture, this right here is Thomas, and then Vernon, the 90-year-old man next door, this little boy in the picture, that's actually his father.
Wow.
Yeah.
When was this picture taken?
I think it was around 1903.
And so this was actually a working blacksmith shop until 2004?
It was.
That's phenomenal.
It is. And as you can see, the original floors. Here you can see all the burn marks, things like that. And they worked on a few ships that you might have known of, the Blue Nose 2, and the Bounty, and many, many more. So it was a very busy port here. Lynn and Pierre found this awesome building, and in 2010, they opened the doors and they had a vodka, cranberry liqueur, a pear eau de vie, and an apple brandy. And from there on, you can see that they have quite a line right now.
Just below the original flooring is where the process begins for the distillery's many products.
This is our fermentation room. So this is where everything begins. So down here, we have 15 2,000-liter stainless steel tanks. And in the tanks, we have apples, pears, or molasses at some point. And all we do is just add a yeast to the tanks. When we add yeast to the tanks, it eats the sugars. And when it eats the sugars, it off-gasses CO2 and it off-gasses alcohol. The CO2 just vents out and the alcohol is what we want. For molasses, it would take about 4 to 6 weeks for it to eat the sugars. And for apples, only about 10 days. And for pears, it takes a little bit longer. It's about 5 to 6 weeks. When it is ready to go, we would just hook this hose onto the tank, and then we would just pump it up to the still 220 liters at a time.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
From the very beginning to the final stages, we now head deep into the distillery to learn about the aging process.
This is the barrel room. So down here, you're going to see a couple of different types of barrels. So first of all, we'll talk about these ones here. So these ones are older, once used Kentucky, Tennessee bourbon barrels, and that is what we age our rums in. And inside of these barrels, this is what they look like.
Whoa.
Very charred. And charring is good because it opens up the wood grain and it makes it more porous, so the alcohol will seep in better. And it goes through a thing of expansion and contraction. And so expansion is when it opens up and it allows the alcohol to seep in warmer temperatures. And then contraction happens when it's cooler. And when that happens, it pushes the alcohol out. So every time it pushes out flavors of bourbon and the sugar notes, flavors from the wood. Right over here, those are Hungarian oak barrels. And so they are brand new when we get them. And so we age apple brandy for about 3 years in those. And we have pear eau de vies that we age from 6 months to a year. And we started aging gin in those. So yeah, it's it's fun.
That sounds really good.
Yeah. And now inside of those, it's just a medium toast, so it's not quite charred as much. And we get different flavors from those. We get some earthiness, some grassy notes, surprising, some spices, smokiness, vanilla notes. So barrel aging is actually quite an art form.
After getting the full tour, I now wanted to learn more about Colette and her journey to becoming part of the Ironworks Distillery family.
How long have you been working here, Colette?
This is my 4th year.
And what brought you here? Were you from Lunenburg?
No, I originally am from Newfoundland, and I was living in Victoria, BC, and we came back here for vacations every year, and then 5 years ago, we decided to stay.
And then what brought you into Ironworks?
Well, buying alcohol, which I really loved. I love that they use local fruit, just that they try to do everything as local as possible. So I just fell in love with that.
Was there a particular product of theirs that you tried and it kind of just changed you?
There was a few. So the Blue Nose rum is quite amazing. It's very smooth. It was a really, really nice rum. So when I had that one, I realized that I didn't want to drink any more rums, only Ironworks Blue Nose rum. And then their vodka is amazing too, because it's made with apples, so it's quite unique. And it just has a wonderful flavor.
It sounds like you're very close here. The crew that works here seems to be really like a tight-knit group.
It is, actually. A lot of people say that every time I do my tours. They said, I can tell that you really love this place. And yeah, it is like a little family.
If you met someone on the street and you're like, you have to go, and you only have time for one, which one do they have to try?
I was going to say the Blue Nose rum, but now we have a rumboat rum. That one we aged on a boat in the harbor here. And so we aged it in our cellars for 3 years in a bourbon barrel, and then we aged it out on the boat in a Hungarian oak barrel. And so the motion of the ocean really moves the alcohol around in the barrel. Salt, air, humidity, everything changes the flavor. And then on January 4th, our boat crashed. Oh. Yeah, and so we have a rumboat rum that I really love. It's very flavorful also, and it's just so unique. And I would say that's probably my favorite right now.
The rumboat rum.
Right, and so we call this one our shipwrecked edition.
Next up on Slainte. It's now time to talk to the owners as we learn all about the importance of their branding and learn more about their decision to launch their rumboat. After getting the full tour of Ironworks Distillery, I wanted to now talk to the owners to discover how they came to own such a historic property. To start this conversation, we talked to Lynn.
Tell me how you started this business.
It was all Pierre's fault. We'll start there. Pierre and I had moved to Halifax. I was from Nova Scotia, so I have this natural blue nose tendency to come towards big water. And Lake Ontario had lost its charm for us at that point. So we were in Halifax and had finished working at our previous careers. I was in the film industry. He was in the stock photographic business. On the way back one day, he saw an article about distilling. And it was about the burgeoning distilling industry in the United States specifically. But it did mention a couple of distilleries in the Atlantic provinces, but there wasn't one in Nova Scotia. He said, look at this magazine. This is a very interesting business. And think, no one is doing this in Nova Scotia. How novel. We could start a business. It would be our own inventions, our own products. We would be in charge of control of it. Why not learn how to do it? So 2 months later, we're in school, learning how to do it. Then we came back to Nova Scotia and we started researching where we could do it. I was down in Lunenburg doing something completely random. I can't even quite remember what. And this building was for sale. I phoned Pierre and said, I see this really beautiful old vintage building and it's for sale. In June of that year, we walked in and we owned the place. So it was from November until June. The nature of distilling is that there's three different kind of people I've realized now. There are chemists who know all of the equations for what we're doing in there. There are equipment geeks. There are people who think, oh, if you extend a line arm this long, you'll get something better at that end or something. And then there are cooks. And that's where I fit in. I'm smart enough to get the chemistry now, but initially I knew what tasted good. You do also have to attract them with the way the thing looks. We found the most wonderful, talented young designer, Stephen Bishop, and he has designed our brand from the ground up. He's a large part of the reason why people are attracted to the brand in the first place.
Can you tell me a little bit about the history of this building?
Oh, glory, yes. I think it's haunted, too. The Walters family started this business in 1893. They did not do blacksmithing for horses and oxen, like horseshoes, etc. They did marine blacksmithing, which in this neighborhood is called ironwork. Hence the name.
Hence the name.
Because we wanted to pay homage to what had gone before. And when we moved into this building, in fact, Vernon Walters, who was the third of the Walters dynasty, he was in his late 80s. He lived just on the corner. He was quite skeptical. When we first moved in, he was very funny. And he would wander by saying, oh, yet another failing business for my old shop. Eventually, he was, I think, quite touched that we called it Ironworks, for starters. And then I think he was quite pleased that it was successful. And he just passed away a couple of years ago, which is why I tend to feel like the place is just a touch haunted. We do hear weird noises here at night. The heritage of the building is important to us, and I think it's important to the town. The heritage will bring people to our doors for other reasons. Not everybody's a drinker. I acknowledge that quite freely. But you want them to be able to see the history of what was here before. And we've maintained a lot of the elements of the blacksmith shop.
Can you tell me about the boat in the harbor?
Yes, I can. Once again, it was Pierre's fault. He seems to be the one that comes up with these crazy ideas, and it was a crazy idea. And he was sitting one day at his desk up there, and he said, you know, we need a boat. Okay, what is this for? He says, we need to age our rum on a boat, because moving rum ages differently from static.
How did he learn about that?
The tradition of bringing rum from the Caribbean to Europe, you know, in the 1800s, illustrated very strongly to seafaring folks that the rum that they started with at the beginning of the voyage was really bad compared to the rum at the end. And it became quite commonly known that rum, when you put it in a barrel, take it for a little ride on the ocean, it improves it. But we have another boat. Do you know about that one?
I do not.
It's not our boat, but we have 4 barrels of rum on Picton Castle, which is currently going around the world for the last time. She'll be back next May.
Wow.
And at that point, we will be harvesting our 4 barrels, which have now gone, at that point have gone around the world. So.
Picking up where Lynn left off, we continue the conversation with Pierre, the other half of this husband and wife team.
We just are enthused by creative new things to do. We are also looking for differentiators, things that we would do that nobody else would be crazy enough to do. And thus came the idea of the rum boat. There's a distillery in the Caribbean islands that ages their rum on the ocean floor. And we thought of doing that, but it's a little cold up here in the North Atlantic, which is where the idea of the rum boat came from.
What brought you into distilling?
At the time, there was no small-scale distillery in Nova Scotia, and we have an abundance of fruit in Nova Scotia. Nobody was turning that product into a value-added beverage alcohol product, and I thought it was a unique opportunity.
Can you tell me a little bit about where you get your fruit in Nova Scotia and why that's important to you?
Well, it's important because in order to truly be local, and because we wanted to build this business around the agricultural product of Nova Scotia, getting it locally makes a great deal of sense to us. The closest fruit we get are the cranberries, which come from Terra Beata, which is 7 kilometers down the road. Our blueberries come from West Caledonia, from Van Dyke's blueberries. And a lot of the other fruit comes from Webster's Farms in Cambridge in the valley. And a lot of the apples and pears are all from that part of the valley. Right now we're in the middle of putting the bottles in the trees for our pear in the bottle product.
Tell me more about that. You're putting the bottles in the trees?
So you go to the orchard when the buds or the blossoms have turned into fruit, and the fruit has started to grow. And when the fruit is just about getting too big to fit in the neck of the bottle. You bring the bottles to the trees, you tie the bottles upside down, and you keep the pear connected to the stem, you push it far up inside, and in September you go back and you have a pear in the bottle. I know, it's kind of magical.
Can you tell me about what you see for the future for Ironworks?
Sometimes it's hard to tone down the ambition gene and think, okay, what's the best for the business and what's the best position for the business? Our strengths are in our smallness because we have a wonderful array of people who come through every summer, Lunenburg being such a hot tourist destination. And we sell so many products directly to customers. We want to be small, we want to be dynamic, we want to play with all kinds of different products because we enjoy that. We enjoy the exploration of finding and developing new products. And those are our strengths once we get into the big world of global booze, where Nova Scotia may not mean anything to the customer and Nova Scotia fruit may not mean anything. That's not where our advantage is. We're then up against the big guys who produce millions of liters a day. So our strength is in our smallness and creating new and interesting things within that smallness rather than growing for the sake of growing.
Next up on Slainte, we get a closer look at the centerpiece of Ironworks Distillery. And we get to taste the product we've heard so much about. From the rumboat to the immense history, we've seemingly learned all there is to learn about Ironworks Distillery. However, I wanted to get a closer look at the centerpiece of the building, the still. And what better guide than the head distiller, Matt.
So Matt, tell me about your still. What's her name?
Her name is Brigitte, and she's been the workhorse of the shop since the doors opened back in 2010. She's got a unique feature about her. She's actually wood-fired, so...
Oh! Imagine that's quite unusual nowadays.
It is, it's quite rare. So all of our rums start out the same way. They start out in the basement, which is our fermentation room. And we ferment our molasses for 3 to 4 weeks. And when it's ready, we pump it up through this line over here into the still. She holds 210 liters at a time.
Wow.
So yeah. So I'll fill that up, fill the copper pot up. And what you see here is actually a stainless steel water jacket. So the pot actually sits in the water jacket and the fire heats the water heats the alcohol mixture. And that starts the whole process. What allows this whole process to take place is that alcohol boils at a lower point than water. So we use that to separate the alcohol. So as the still heats up, the alcohol will evaporate up into the hat here, and it will move across to this middle column, which is the reflux column. And this is basically where all the refining takes place. What happens, there's a copper coil in here, and that's just to maximize the copper exposure in the vapor stream so it contacts as much as possible and purifies it. It will work its way up to the top where it contacts the pre-condenser, which starts the cooling process. So only the purest alcohols will move past that point. Once they get through the pre-condenser, they will move across to the cold water condenser here. And this is where the vapor turns back into a liquid and runs out through here where we capture it.
And that's alcohol?
That's alcohol right there.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
After learning how it's made, it's now time to try the extensive product line of Ironworks Distillery.
Okay, what are we trying today?
We are going to try our vodka today. And our vodka is actually quite unique. It's made from apples. Some people get a hint of apple in there, and even some people get a butterscotch taste or smell in there.
That's really interesting.
It is.
A little bit of caramel. It's
Yeah.
actually very easy to drink.
Right.
Very smooth. That's Yeah, that's very nice.
Next one is apple brandy. This one we aged in Hungarian oak barrel that I showed you for 3 years. Yeah, and so this one gives you a nice little warm feeling.
More than the last one?
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love the color. Oh, it smells oaky. Very.
Yeah. A little more earthy tone. A little warm spice.
That's really good. It reminds me of like a caramel candy apple. Like it's really got quite a sweetness to it. That's very nice.
So next up, we're gonna try our Rumboat rum. So we age it in-house for 3 years in a bourbon barrel, and then we age it for 1 year on a boat in a Hungarian oak barrel. So the two different barrels gives it a lot of flavor, and quite unique also again, because on January 4th, it crashed into the rocks. Yeah, so this one is called Shipwrecked Edition. So you definitely have to try this one.
Okay. It smells salty. That's cool.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
And some people get coconut flavors in there. I've even heard pineapple. There's just so many.
Coconut.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm surprised that it would taste so tropical.
So our next one, this is our signature product. This is our Blue Nose Dark Spice Rum. So yeah, so with this one, we age it in our bourbon barrels for 2 years, and then we blend in caramel, molasses, and a little bit of spice.
Wow. I love how dark it is. Is that the molasses?
It is.
So rich. Almost creamy.
It is.
It's got a lot going on. It's
does.
quite complex, actually.
Yeah.
Really layered. It's very nice.
It is. So next up is our rhubarb. This is made with local fruit, and we hardly add any sugars to this one, so it tastes pretty much like eating rhubarb.
Yeah, it's very fruity smelling. Oh, wow.
Isn't that refreshing?
This is delightful. This is really nice. Full flavor.
It is.
Tart,
Yeah.
but slightly sweet. Kind of like a popsicle, like a fruit popsicle. That's really good.
Hey, and you've been waiting for the blackberry. So this one's a little tart and sweet, just
Tart
like a
and
blackberry.
sweet. Okay. When I was a kid, we used to go blackberry picking, and I almost never came home with any because I would eat them all.
Me too.
It's everything I dreamed it would be.
It tastes like blackberries.
It tastes like blackberry juice.
Yeah,
This is amazing.
it is.
I would
Yeah.
never have thought that this had gone through any kind of process except literally a squished fruit.
Yeah.
It's exactly
Yep.
just juice.
And that's, we don't add anything. It's all natural.
Oh, wow. So good. Pure blackberry. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I hope you
Okay.
enjoyed.
I did.
Good.
Now I have to decide which ones I must take home with me. Rarely do you have the opportunity of being inside an old blacksmith shop, let alone one that's been turned into a distillery, creating such quality products. It's clear to me, after talking with Lynn and Pierre, how much they care about the people around them, including their family that they've created here at Ironworks. They've got wonderful ideas, and they're always pushing the boundaries for what's next. Definitely gonna have to come back in May to try the Picton Castle edition. In the meantime, my favorites right now are gonna be the rhubarb. That is delightfully crisp and refreshing. The blackberry, because it just reminds me of jam. And I'm definitely gonna have to take home their signature Blue Nose rum. So remember, guys, if you're ever in the Lunenburg area, I highly recommend you make Ironworks Distillery one of your top destinations.